try to field any questions you might have or take comments with the understanding that folks might need to leave and move on to the next meeting. So with that, I think we'll just allow some people to maybe raise your hand or stand up, and we can give you a few moments.
My name is Beverly Gallagher. And Kathy, you're talking about education for our children. Now, the FFA is Future Farmers of America, which is through your school system. Those kids need to show someplace to showcase their projects. That is our local fair. No fair, those kids lose. Now we talk about money. Nobody has enough money. The fairgrounds buildings are in good shape. We have sent 4,000 signatures to the FAA in Washington, D.C., saying we want to keep our fairgrounds. The buildings are usable. They're in good shape. Why throw it away? We need some political help here to the FAA to support the people in Mason County. Support our kids. Support our FFA kids. Support our 4-H kids. Support. FAIR is a community nucleus. We need the community support, but we need political help to back us up. Thank you.
My name is Tom Davis. I'd like to speak for a moment about the Shelton Hills concept. This is a game changer for us. This is big news. This could very possibly stabilize the economy in Mason County, and it is sorely needed. Not only the housing, but the jobs that come with it, the construction jobs, and also the retail outlets. But incorporated in the original proposal was the cleanup of Goose Lake. Every great city has a park, and a park of some standing, and that was supposed to be our park. That was the city park. My wife and I travel all over the United States, and we have yet to see a city that is viable without a park. And we don't have that in Shelton. We need the cleanup of Goose Lake. That was originally part of the proposal, and it's gotten dropped out through no fault of Falls Equity, who's the developer on the project. What we need is some state intervention. We need the state to take that property over from Rayonier and take the responsibility along with it to clean up that area. Because that project will not prosper next to a Superfund site. Thank you.
Kathy Anderson. I was at this last meeting last year, and I'm talking about the same thing that I talked about last year, and there's been no comment about the environment whatsoever. I attended the December 6th and December 13th hearing in Olympia regarding the CO2 emission levels, and I strongly support the governor's effort to meet these levels that were mandated by the legislature. The reason I'm mentioning this is I think that any project proposals that are being set up within the county, the environmental issue is so very, very important. If you're only looking at it from an economics part, nobody ever talks about what is the economic cost if we don't clean up the environment. What do we do with all this contamination and pollution? It does not go away. It just keeps accumulating. And this one project that is being proposed over by the prison, which is a partnership between the city, the county, Green Diamond, and Hunter Farms. I have a problem with that. The MOU has been written by Green Diamond. I don't know how somebody that is seeking permits can be in charge or making recommendations as to what the parameters and limits of what a EIS should be, or who the consultant can be. To me, it's a conflict of interest, and I don't even see how it can be legal. There's no indication of what is being proposed to go in there. It's industrial, heavy industrial, or lightweight industrial. We just don't know what's going on. And I am very, very much concerned that we might be having another Dodge thing being tried to be pushed through with a big incinerator and all this pollution coming out of it. The other thing is, it has to be rezoned for industrial. The CARAs have not been mapped yet. So we have no idea where the class 1s are. And if you're not familiar with that, this is a critical aquifer recharge areas. The class 1 are the extremely highly susceptible to contamination. So it seems premature to even be considering giving a rezone to an industrial area until we know where these CARAs are. Then there's an example of what happens with the pollution is Shelton Hills. It's a great idea. You want to put a school up there, an elementary school, housing, retail, and commercial investments. If something goes up over by the prison, that becomes a polluting element. Who is going to want to live up in Shelton Hills or to have a business up there? And it's so terribly polluted. There's so much in Goose Lake that it's just beyond comprehension. And the C Street dump going through the Barrera report has very, very high concentrations of dioxin in it. So which is another really problem. The other thing you're talking about, these floating farms for the seeds for the shellfish. Well, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but in 2013, May of this year, there was an ecology report about dioxin, and it was coming from the various creeks and so forth. And it was discovered there's 2 ash piles over near there. They did not say whose fence it was, but there's only one outfit that has a chain link fence. These ash piles are underneath there, and they are leaching dioxin out of there. So the amount are 54.4 parts per trillion. And the allowance, according to ecology, is between 1 and 11 parts. So I think that's a consideration. Dioxin doesn't stay in the water, but it seeks out fatty tissue to accumulate it. So all these things, they don't go away. They just keep accumulating. And I think it's very, very important for us to think of it. If you can think of it no other way, think of it what's going to cost us in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone. I just had a suggestion as you're looking at transportation and infrastructure challenges. And an example has been Belfair over the last few years. They dig the road up and shut the roads down for a project and pave it over, dig it up again for another project because they have to do the work in a certain time so they don't lose the money. Maybe from a national level and partnering and creating some opportunities, memorandums of understanding or whatever works to help so that way the dollars that are set aside and received by our municipalities for those types of infrastructure projects don't time out because they're looking at what other projects are going to be occurring that they can look to do them concurrently, be able to leverage those dollars, leverage the resources, not have to dig up and repave and dig up and repave, and then they all save money. The community saves time and frustration as well. So maybe there's some tools there to help each other.
I just wanted to offer to Representative Haig and Commissioner Jeffries, when you're starting with the mental health, trying to tackle that problem and how you want to use the monies that have been taken out taxes for that. I don't know if you've been in touch with Choice Regional Health Network out of Olympia, that they're a Pius County kind of coalition, and they have a project called the Regional Health Improvement Collaborative, and they work specifically on that dual diagnoses for the chemically dependent and mental health issues because they go hand in hand, as you know, and then you have the recidivism and the taxing on the healthcare system. But anyhow, they might help you from having to reinvent the wheel on a lot of things. I think they'd be a really good network for KITS app and then for us since we're starting out here. So I just encourage you, I think Mason General's a member, so if you want to get in touch with their CEO and get put in touch with them, that'd be a good connection for you guys.
Do you work there?
I used to work at Mark Reed, and so I worked really closely with Joyce.
What I was going to talk about is the cancer and the water issues here. A year ago, I went to the county commission meeting and talked about our cancer incident in Mason County, and we were number 1 in the state of all the counties for cancer incidents. And they had a meeting with our Dr. Yu, who basically said that cancer incident was not anything that we needed to worry about. It was cancer mortality rates that we needed to worry about. So at this point, we are now number 3 in the state for cancer incident, but we are number 1 in the state for liver cancer mortality, bladder cancer mortality, and others. We don't have a healthy environment here for some reason, and I don't think it's just hereditary, and I don't think it's just people making bad choices, because that's the other thing that she implemented, that we have people here that, yes, Grace Harbor County has the same industry as Mason County for the high lung cancer incidence, but it's the type of people making the type of choices that they make. I just don't buy into that, and I think that we need to start looking at everything in the circle. And by that, it's the ordinances that we produce are wonderful ordinances here in Mason County. The problem is in the CARA ones, which are critical aquifer recharge area, they have not been implemented. And what that means, if you talk to the ecology about what the CARA regulations are for, is protection of our health and safety. That's where our drinking water comes from. We have 3 landfills over the top of the drinking water, Goose Lake over the top of the drinking water. They're putting that water into that drinking water. Then the state goes ahead and we do a thing called waiver. I ran into that and I found out about wavering. All the things that I'm worried about being in the water is not being tested for because it's waivered. We pay not to test for these things. So I believe instead of figuring out about planning more infrastructure, no one wants to move here. No one wants to be a part of a bad health situation or risk the families' lives. We need to make a healthy environment and grow productively. Where is a safe place to develop that's not on top of our drinking water? So those are the questions that I'd like us to look at. Why is our cancer rate? What's causing what are some of the elements? So that's some of my issues. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dallas Engen. I'm just a community member, not any particular agency or organization. Just a few observations. I think the state bank idea is a great one that Kathy talked about. And maybe that could also be used in that new budding marijuana business that could help get away from federal problems with that. You know, people talked about poverty in this county, and you can see it. Well, I think if you lift the bottom folks up and generate aggregate demand, you improve your economy at all levels, including the top. So a higher minimum wage should be a federal priority, but it would help here too. Although Washington, I guess, does have the highest minimum wage. If you looked at inflation, though, where it was like in the 60s compared to now, it's dropped rather, somewhat. So that would help everybody. And the other thing I think is to help poverty is instead of pushing people into disability because they can't get any kind of work or whatever, there should maybe be a federal jobs program of last resort. This is for the congressional staffers that can get older people or younger people trained and working productively instead of languishing. And that would also help generate income into a community and economy and generate aggregate demand, which would improve for everybody. I'm somewhat confused that Shelton's very close to very prosperous areas of the state. It's not that far from Seattle. It's not that far from the state capital. And yet, it doesn't seem like things happen like it could happen. And this could be a more prosperous area for everybody. And I'm still somewhat confused because physically it's not that far off the I-5 corridor. It's not that far from our major job centers. And there was talk about education and moving manufacturing into the port areas. Seems that the local schools could partner with some of these new manufacturing companies. And I guess Olympic College does it to a certain extent. And so that the young people that can get the skills that will not only employ them and provide family wage jobs, but will also help those companies and become a magnet for those kind of manufacturing businesses, because we're not going to be a real comfortable country in the long run if we just have a service economy and manufacturing disappears. So I, I'm like I say, I think this community has a lot of potential, and I think a lot of the ideas that we talked about are moving it in that direction. But it does seem like it could be more too. So that's what I would say.
Steve?
I'm Rose Nye, and just a citizen now, but I'm concerned about what I see happening and changing, not all for the good. I agree that we need industrial space. We have it south of town, which in the beginning of all the urban growth and all that, we were to be a big circle with goods and services, south, west, north, all the way around. To make it better for the sheriff, for the water, for the sewer, for the hospital, for the county, the city, everything. It's not happening. It's all going the other way. Away from the airport that should be protected, away from the aquifer that should be protected. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And we wonder why our downtown is dying. You come in from the south, you come off the freeway, there's nothing. Nothing can happen. No zoning. Everything's off limits. We have property on the railroad. Can't use it. Off limits. I heard a need for a railroad. It's here. Can't use it. I wonder why. Why are we doing it this way? And we want to take in 700 or 800 acres now for development off of Dayton Airport Road that is too narrow, no interchange. If they were to develop that, it would require all those services. Yes, the water does go part way now to the State Patrol. There's no water in the line to be used. But they said there's infrastructure out there. There really isn't. It would have to come. The highway would have to be improved. There'd have to be an interchange if you were going to introduce that type of growth. So I'm saying, why? Why can't we? There was another thing. They said we need industrial with visibility. South of town, there is industrial visibility. There was a state forum here recently I heard on the radio, and the speakers were talking the need of I-5 and Highway 101 needing industrial visibility. I would like to see the city and the county and everybody that's working on this together, like the state and the county and the state, or the city, county and state, work together to put in this water line to the State Patrol, which I don't think they really needed because the State Patrol can get water from the port, which has an abundance. It was not urgent. We did need money for schools, we needed money for the elderly, we needed money for the poverty, but they acquired $3.5 million to build the water line, and I don't know how many million it's going to take to put water in that line yet. So that's not a done deal. So those are my concerns. My other concern is the project, as this lady over here mentioned, conflict of interest. How can two private individuals, taxpayers like myself, co-pay with the city and the county to do a study and pay a consultant to develop this project? I didn't think it was possible or allowable to mix private funds and public funds? And I'd like an answer on that. Those are some of my concerns. I've got other here, but I don't want to take too much time. But those are some of my concerns. South of town, we are not over a aquifer. We're not hurting an airport. We have visibility. So just take a look at our end of town too. Thank you.
I see any more hands.
Vern Rosenberg. I applaud this meeting. I think it's a good idea. I'd like to see it get out to the rest of the public. There's only a handful of people here. If there's any way that you can assemble the minutes from the meeting and you can put on the internet, or maybe push it in the journal, or somehow get the information out to the rest of the people.
We'll be there.
I'd like to comment a little bit about the environment. I grew up in Hoodsport, and I rode the school bus into Shelby. When I go by Goose Lake, there'd be full, 3 feet high, and steam coming off the lake. I understand in the early 60s or 70s, it poisoned all the whales down in the shelter. Also, the bay is very, very polluted. I worked at Simpson for 32 years. When I was there, I worked at insulated port plant, I worked at all the mills. At IBP, they used to mix paint, and when they were done with the mix, they would dump it all in the bay. Thousands and thousands of gallons. You'd go out on the waterfront and the bay would be white. Dioxins came from ash from the powerhouse. They built roads around the plywood plant with ash from the powerhouse, right alongside the creek. There's pentachlorophenol. They dumped thousands and thousands of gallons of pentachlorophenol into the bay. They would take the racks of lumber and stoke them in a huge tank filled with pentachlorophenol, take them out, set them on a barge, and they'd drain off into the bay. I filed a charge with the state, and the state threatened to shut them down unless they found some other way to protect. Well, that quick. They got a hold of the international woodworkers in Canada, and they had a soda base preservative, and they stopped using pentachlorophenol in the state. Talk about dioxins, you talk about herbicides. Simpson at one point told our cutters in the woods that they had to take what they called Toradol, spray on the boulder stumps and maple stumps to kill the stumps. Those cutters refused to do it. And if we went clear almost to a strike vote, finally the company said, okay, we'll back off, we'll make the bosses do it. So the bosses carried the Toradol around on their hips, and that was 2,4-D, 2,4,5-T, the same herbicide that wiped out Vietnam. The people who file claims now with cancer, exposure. So you wonder where the poisons are coming from? Goose Lake, Bay. You go to a hearing on the pollution in the Bay, and the state doesn't really want to hear it. Oyster growers, I can't understand, but the oyster growers didn't want another study on the Bay. But anyway, there's part of your reason for your cancer rate.